summoned you here for a purpose.
TransformYourGame.net.
Welcome one, welcome all, welcome back. Thank you for joining us today for part B of our 8th episode of the Transform Your Game podcast. It's me, Richard, your host and moderator, and I'm gathered here today with my 3 bright and shining co-hosts, Kent.
Megatron, is that you?
Kai.
Slash!
And Joel.
Hey there.
I love the hey there. It's my favorite thing. I'm sorry. Today we've got the second half of the final spoiler dump for Wave 5 Titan Master's Attack, to be released in stores May 29th, barring any further delay, from extenuating circumstances. I'm pumped to get my hands on these cards already. Aren't y'all?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, in the interest of being consistent, I figured we'd ask a very quick icebreaker question to kick off Part B, just because we've been doing that lately. So, guys, what is your favorite card spoiled in this final, spoiler release, this big dump at the very end? Was it something from Part A that we already covered? Is it something we'll be covering here shortly?
We're going to cover this card shortly, but Spy Master's Ruse, I'm in love.
Yu-Gi-Oh now.
You took my answer.
I'm gonna ask Spy Master's Ruse to marry me after I pull it out of the pack.
And I might like that.
Yeah. I've got this whole ceremony planned, and you guys are all gonna be the groomsmen, and it's
busy that day. Sorry.
It's gonna be nice. And what's kind of crazy is my wife's okay with it too. So
hey, there you go. So mine is actually Tripwire, because that card is insane. Let's go back to the last podcast. That card is so good.
Yeah, if y'all listen to Part A, then you'll know that I was very fond of Decoy Flares. It is going to be very strong and...
oh my God.
Okay.
I thought he was going to say Improvised Shield. Because he's the aggro guy.
It is orange.
Well, actually, I do really like Emergency Barricade. That was going to be the card that I, for real, was going to say. I'm not saying that card's busted in some way, but finding a way to get rid of Force Field and get a more offensive-minded card in the decks, and offensive decks would be great.
Well, thank you guys so much for being generous and saving End Hostilities for me. Because I don't know.
What does that do?
It's the best card they've ever printed, Joel. It says, "Hey, aggro, how about no?"
How does that work?
Oh, I love it so much. Well, it turns all those pesky orange pips into glorious, lovely blue pips.
Hey, that's cool.
Yeah, one thing that's cool, I forgot to mention this for somehow, but Matrix of Leadership becomes a double blue when you do that, which is really sick.
I think you mentioned it.
Okay.
For both sides, yeah.
Well, I mean, it is, speaking of mentioning things, extra padding is very good.
Extra padding.
Extra padding.
Extra padding.
With End Hostilities.
Maybe.
Yeah. Just saying. Just getting it out there. All right, well, I think that's probably a great time for us to head into the spoilers we've got left. So, Kent, why don't you hit us with the first one, buddy?
All right, so our first spoiler of the day is Hit and Run. And this card's really interesting because it has a white and a black pip on it. It is an action. It is a common. Flip one of your characters from bot mode to alt mode. Move one damage counter from it to an enemy in alt mode. Yeah, I think this is pretty interesting, especially for the Windsweeper deck that likes to move damage a lot, and it's also a little flip intensive with Windsweeper and whoever else you have on your team, with possibly Slipstream, who will never flip, but maybe you're running Horrible, or something like that, to make it work and to keep moving damage. It's pretty cool. I think it's nice that it's a common. I am enjoying seeing another white and black pip. I think this is infinitely better than Swerve, just because I love moving the damage off my guys and onto your characters.
How dare you? No, I think this card is good. It's pretty much, you can think of it like Rollout, where it has two quote-unquote relevant pips on it, and instead of flipping all your characters from bot to alt. It flips just one, and then it also moves that damage counter. The only problem I have with this is that it has to be an enemy in alt mode, which, I mean, realistically that'll happen more often than not, but there is still a situation where it won't happen, so, or it won't be the character that you need the damage on, so it is a bit of a restriction, but I think it's still perfectly playable otherwise.
For me, what this card really points out is a lack of being able to use this with body modes. I mean, there's just so few effects, or I don't know, 0 effects that say one of your characters in body mode to alt mode. There's just not a lot of support for that, and this harkens back to traditional characters, and it doesn't really go with the flavor of what the set's trying to do. In that case, it is very playable, and in the orange-black deck, it can replace Swerve, which was strictly there for the pips. This card has niche uses there.
Nuh-uh, you flipped Barrage to his alt mode to get an extra defense every once in a while.
Hey, Pierce 2 as well.
Sure, on defense. Woohoo! I will say this. So I'm on Joel's team here. I think I'm just surprised that this doesn't mention body mode at all. Many people were speculating we were going to get an escape route rapid conversion variant that was going to mention body mode characters specifically on it, and we really didn't get that. The only flip mode cards that really work with the characters who have body modes are rapid conversion, the OG, and showing off, which is poised for good things, I think. But Hit and Run is definitely better than Swerve. I know, Kai, that you were deeply hurt by Kent bringing that point up. But it's just better. The secret action didn't do anything, and this actually does. It heals you for one. Maybe it lets you take an extra swing from an opposing character by getting you up to maybe having 6 health left when you have Vanguard in play. Who knows? It's Reach. Reach is always important to have in your decks. Interesting to note, the second white and black pip card we have in the game. I would love to see a white and black pip weapon. That'd be really cool, actually. I feel like I don't think we have any upgrades that have white and black pips on them. That'd be something cool to see. I'm sure it's eventually going to happen. There's only so many combinations of pips and abilities you can do. But yeah, I think this card is cool. I just wish it interacted with the Titan Masters characters a little bit better.
All right, so the next card we're going to talk about is Spy Master's Ruse. It's an action. It has a black pip with a specialist icon on it, and a green pip. And it says you may play a secret action. While that card is face down, this card and that card aren't scrapped at the end of turn. So just to clarify what that means that at the end of turn, when all actions and whatnot would be scrapped, like card flips, you wouldn't scrap this card as long as your secret action is face down. So you can keep it there as long as you want to turn on effects like Night Racer's Bold 1 or Tough 1 or Pounce is +2. But yeah, that's basically the gist of why this card is so broken.
Wow.
Yeah.
Rated G, man. Rated G.
No. We're not. Now we're talking about Spy Master's Ruse.
Yeah, this card is really good.
Obviously, this card is extremely powerful. It lets you keep cards in play that you want, like I don't know, end hostilities or something. Just hold that down
Not
forever.
That card.
Yeah, just hold that there until your opponent plays belligerence. You don't even have to guess anymore about when your opponent might be playing something that you want to stop with infiltrate or end hostilities. Plus, I was super excited about Pounce already as a strong, aggressive character in a sort of a defensive shell with secret actions, and this will just let you pile it up. I mean, Pounce can get really big. You can have 2 secret actions down without even using his stratagem.
Actually, there might even be a world where you can have 4 secret actions on the field. If you've played 3 Spy Master's Ruses in the game, so you got 3 sitting out there, and then you play one like on your turn or something. Think about that.
If you play Special Ops Mission or Brainstorm, you could have 5.
No, you can't have 5.
Yeah, you could. if you had 3 already on the field and then you played Brainstorm or Special Ops Mission, you could
Oh,
play
I
3
see.
more out.
All right.
And 5, which would be plus 10. He'd be a 15 base power character.
I thought I was the Timmy here, guys.
No. We want to do. We're Johnnies, man. Spy Master's Ruse is a Johnny card. It's when it got spoiled, Kai literally mentioned in our group chat. He was like, "What are we, Yu-Gi-Oh now? Turning our secret
Yu-Gi-Oh now.
cards. They're just gonna sit out there forever until you trigger them." And I was like, "Man, this is so cool. I love this card." I will say this. So the notation that it has for like the conditional pip and then the real pip and then a third pip is a nightmare for me to put into my spreadsheets. When I'm building deck lists, but I'll tell you this, man, this card is so cool. It's so weird because it breaks the game in a very specific way. And secret actions were already this kind of thing where, like, they had this depth to them that was hard to explain as like part of the game. I'm so pumped. To include this in decks, maybe even as like a one-of, maybe in my sideboards. I think that it's really great in the fact that it could be an addition to some of the combo hate cards, right? Like, let's say that if something ever came back that was a nightmare, like this is one of those cards that helps those hosers or those kind of like safety valves be assured. And that's one of the things I think is really cool about it because it's a niche application of a very cool card. But Spy Master's Ruse is great. It puts end hostilities in play forever, which makes me so excited. I will say this, though. It does get turned off by counter-espionage because counter-espionage will scrap the face-down secret action, which will also end up scrapping your Spy Master's Ruse end of turn, which is unfortunate because your opponent kind of gets a 2-for-1 at minimum out of that. Let's say they can also take more secret actions out of your hand if they had the same name. But overall, just an awesome card. Really pumped to play it. Really excited to see where it ends up.
I cannot believe they printed this card. This is the best card they've ever printed. I'm just going to go on record saying that now. Get your Spy Master's Ruse like day one. Oh my God. I mean, this is just insane. It makes the depth of your deck running secret actions so much better. Like, you're playing against the, David Burgos orange-black Pierce deck, and okay, cool. Well, here's my Temporal Quagmire, and it's just going to sit there forever until you're ready to swing with Demolisher. And I mean, things like that, and then like, combo starting to rear its head again. Okay, well, why don't we play Spy Master's Ruse and Speed Trap, and the moment you try to go off, you can't.
Big nope.
And then Speed Trap also has a green pip on it too, so now that one's done, I'm going to pick up the next one too.
Mm-hmm.
This card, oh my gosh, I really felt like Control was gonna be dead after this set. There's just so much raw aggression from the bots, the battle cards, of course, belligerents, and then, not just orange and bold and all that kind of stuff, but all the black too. Oh my goodness. But now you have Spy Master's Ruse, and like this card, and of course in hostilities makes me go, okay, cool, we can play Control again. Oh, thank you, Jesus. This card is so she will. I'm so pumped. I'm so stoked. Thank you, Wizards. Will be mine. Oh yes.
Oh God.
She will be mine.
Oh man.
So, just to clarify, I know that Spy Master's Ruse is basically you're playing 2 cards in the same turn, which is heavy on your hand. So we're excited about it in prospects of things like Sergeant Skywarp and Shockwave and all that stuff. But you can't still play it because of Pocket Processor. So it's really not that unreasonable to consider even 1 or 2 in your general control deck. So
yeah, I mean, it doesn't even have to be Pocket Processor. There are plenty of like control decks that are based around card advantage as kind of like one of the engines or axes that they're competing in the game. I mean, you look at Jetfire, like at the risk of belaboring the point of that I played him so much. But even like maybe there's just some kind of defensive cars deck, whether it's the Run Brothers or Cliff Jumper. Those decks are very good at filling their hand as well. And Spy Master's Ruse could potentially be something that's helpful against, like in that instance. Joel, I believe you're up next, and man, we got a stinger for you.
Oh, well, I was going to say I didn't want to give this away when you were asking what our favorite card was from this dump. Well, I didn't want to spoil it for everybody, but here's the spoiler. Laser Scalpel. It's a common utility upgrade. 2 black pips, which is not bad, gives Pierce 1.
It's a utility, and
Right.
I do have to say it is. We finally have a mirror black pip to improvise shield and handheld blaster.
Mm-hmm. We
And
sure
that's
do.
probably all we need to say about it.
This is
Joel,
going
don't
to
you
be
have words?
Yeah, this is going to be auto-include in every deck along with Lucky Dodge. I mean, like, you're starting at 34 cards in your deck. You're including this Lucky Dodge in every deck.
Yeah, that's
Don't
kind
forget
of broken.
the cost stars. Oh, I should stop laughing. I feel like I'm making it impossible for them to hear. Oh my god, I'm sorry. Laser Scalpel just happened to fall on your name when I was doing the rotation, and
Like it always happens to fall on your name.
Yeah, well, you know what? At least this card does have double black pips. If you're trying to play something that focuses on double black pips, there's no star on this card. It's at least usable in that sort of context.
very true, very true. I don't know what deck would be focusing on that at the moment, but it's never too far off. It's not something that's outlandish. They could even do something if they ever did another like non-combat pip lord ability like Tailwinds for black pips. This is one of those cards you have to keep in your mind for something like that. Not really playable otherwise. Funny. I like that it exists. I think it's cool that it exists.
Well, let's talk about the picture for a second.
Okay.
Is he about to cut off Ravage's head or something? Like slit his throat? Like
It's a laser scalpel. Maybe he's performing surgery.
Yeah,
I don't know.
think
That
like
cat does
surgery.
not look like he wants to have surgery performed on him.
I will say, yeah, he doesn't look super stoked. He's not in a welcoming position. Who knows? Maybe this is like a throwback to Ratchet or something, where it's like.
Well, those
saying,
are Ratchet's hands, Ratchet or Pharma. Oh, and if you got that joke, me and you are tight.
Okay, I didn't get that joke.
Well, I guess we're not teammates with Kent then.
Hey, it's been a
Well,
good run.
actually, because I gifted some Transformers IDW comics to
Oh yeah, you did.
then you
So
will
I
get that
will
joke.
get it.
You
I
will
will
get that
get it.
reference.
Okay.
Because that's
Well,
a major plot point. So
all
that
right.
could be Pharma, who,
Spoilers,
well,
man.
I can't
Spoilers,
go
what are you
into it,
doing?
or I'll be talking forever. All right.
Yeah, what a change. And I'm sorry, that was me. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. I can't. That's fair. Regenerative Core is a really cool card. Card that we have to talk about is Regenerative Core. Man, we just dawdle.
We've never dawdled like that before. Oh my gosh.
It's a green pip upgrade. Gives +1 defense. It's an armor. And it says when the upgraded character attacks, move 1 damage counter from it to this. Then, if this has 2 or more damage counters on it, scrap it. This is a completely unique design space. We've never had non-character cards that can receive damage counters to them before. I think it's not a very outlandish thing that this is the kind of thing that can exist. But this is maybe like something to expand upon the potential for healing, possibly. Who knows? I'd love to see more cards like this. I'd love to see something like maybe there's a weapon in the future that takes damage onto it, and you get a bonus for how much damage it has stacked on the weapon or something. Maybe it's a volatile something. But I love this card. It's so cool. I don't think it's going to see a lot of play. I think that just being green pip is going to really hurt it. But I do think that it is. I think it says a lot for the potential design space for upgrades in the future, or possibly even secret actions. Who knows?
Yeah, I love that they introduced this new mechanic. I'm very, very down with it. I wish that instead of had 2 or more damage counters on it, scrap it. I wish it was 3. just because it is a green pip only, and it's only giving +1. I mean, I know you can't have everything, but I really would have liked it. I do want to try it with Windsweeper. I think that could be very, very cool. Yeah, I'm happy. I like it. Keep making new cards like this, Wizards.
It's a cool card. It's not going to see a lot of play. It's a rare, so it also won't get used in limited a lot, but it's a really great card in limited.
Is there any potential for this in maybe like the Toolbox Optimist deck we keep bullying the idea about?
Because it moves instead of heals.
Right. It moves instead of heals, but if you have the Safeguard head on him, I recognize that makes him 85 million stars to play. But like Toolbox healing 2, potentially 4, and Regenerative Core means you can really guarantee that the Safeguard is going to go off.
I think I'd rather have the Hollow Matter, honestly.
You're probably right.
Yeah,
You're probably
definitely.
right. All right, I tried. I tried. I get points for trying.
Cool. All right, the next card that we have is Triangulator. This is a green upgrade utility. It's an uncommon. It gives focus 1. When you put this on a character, you may play another Triangulator. Up to 3 Triangulators can fit in one utility slot. I don't know really where this goes. I know people have been, saying, hey, focus 6. You can like really dig down through your deck. And I mean, I guess you can.
How do you focus 6?
You have 3 ADs, you have Raider Sights, and then you have Acute Reflexes on Galaxy Prime, as I commented.
Oh. Okay, sure.
Or you put it on a guy that already has like focus 2, like Wave 3 Flame War. So I don't know. You could be really digging down through your deck that way.
Yeah, I think we sort of expected this last set because of the way the collection upgrades have been going.
Mm-hmm.
I think this probably won't see play though because it's singularly just a green pip, so you're just adding more blanks, 3 blanks into your deck just to do focus 3. Not to mention you're going to have to be digging for them, so you're flipping them, and you're not getting your combat buffs, quote unquote. So I don't know if that's worth it in the end. I'd rather just do like War of Attrition or even attack drones in specific decks or extra padding. So yeah, I don't know if we'll see play, but yeah.
Hey, dig out your General Megatrons. Nah, leave them in the binder. This card isn't really going to do much. I'm sorry.
Oh man,
it's basically like Kai said. It's basically just 3 more blanks in your deck. That's gonna be really rough to get around.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might not even come back in time.
No. So. It's also card disadvantageous. We've talked about this before. WotC is incredibly hesitant to make focus 3 a possibility. I actually don't even think we have very many upgrades that grant focus, now that I'm thinking about it. Like, there's Acute Reflex, especially not on green pip cards. The fact that this only has a green pip is going to hurt it so bad. I love the collection upgrades. Shout out to Extra Padding.
Extra padding.
Extra padding.
Extra padding.
Again, I think that's twice in this episode. But this just isn't I don't think as good as either Attack Drone or Extra Padding. I think it's not even as good as what's the truck one from Wave 1?
Cargo Trailer.
Cargo Trailer. I don't even think it's as good as Cargo Trailer, honestly. I want this to be good. I wanted this to be something super interesting. I was really hopeful that like the utility collection upgrade would be something unique, or maybe something else that's stacked in a different way. This isn't really what I was expecting. Yeah, I wish I had more to say.
All right, so the next card we have is Sonic Stun Gun. It's a green pip upgrade. On top of the fact that there's a green card, the upgraded character gets +1 until end of turn. So I think this card is actually a bit playable because there are ways that you can play multiple green cards in a turn, whether it's just your standard upgrade, or you can play things like Focus Fire or War of Attritions and get attack buffs that way if you're playing this for that turn. Yeah, I think this card is definitely playable. It's just I don't know if you're going to play it in, say, the Airstrike deck or whatnot.
Yeah, as far as constructed playable, this again is going to suffer the same fate as Triangulator that we were just discussing. It's a green pip only, and in most cases, you're really just hoping to get +2, unless your deck is like super focused around playing something like Triangulator, and then you get +3, which basically just makes it a grenade launcher. I'd rather just play Grenade Launcher. I don't think this card is going to see a whole lot of play.
I think that the one place this stands to see play is in some kind of Cars deck that focuses around green light. So the ability on this card is the same as green light's bot mode. It is green light, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I figured that was it because the word green is literally in the name. So that's how I was trying to remember it, is my mnemonic device. But having each green card you play give you +2 is a whole different animal than every green card you play giving you +1. I think that, that can make this the largest weapon buff in the game in reality, right, through that. But this card is, I think it's only really going to be present in gimmicky decks. I think you could see it in decks built around maybe Wave 1 Thundercracker, and like Focus Fire or War of Attritions or something like that. You could maybe see it built in a deck built around Greenlight, but I don't expect to see much play in anything else beside that. I think that it is just objectively worse than Soldier's Blaster in the vast majority of situations, and Soldier's Blaster itself didn't really see much play. So,
yeah, I want to mention that I believe Wizards has really caught on to just how powerful the green pip is. So I've said since Wave 2 that green pips are the most powerful pips in the game, bar none. And when you look through the spoilers right now, how many cards do we have that have a green pip with an orange pip or a green pip and a blue pip? The answer is 1. And it's Lose the Initiative, which is very niche at best.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that we would see more things like, Scoundrel's Blaster, Noble's Blaster, and extra padding, War of Attrition, all those kind of things. But I think they've figured out that if they print too many cards like that, it's just too powerful.
But yeah, it also, I think the power of green pips is that it is a variance reducing mechanic, and Transformers is a game that has, I'm going to be honest with you guys, there's a lot of variance in it, you can deck build to kind of limit it, but green pips can, if they're too strong, can make games feel very samey. When they first got introduced and Bashing Shield was just king of everything, I felt personally like a lot of the games that I was playing felt very similar. And then over time, we slowly got more and more ways to combat the power level of that card. Maybe the power level of the card pool at large rose, but there's too many cards that are strong in that way, where they are limiting to my opponent's deck choices that are viable in a competitive atmosphere. I think it's actually bad play patterns. Whereas having enough of them that are good that you want some of them in your deck, especially some situational ones that are very good against degenerate strategies, I think are great play patterns. Because all they do is say, hey, I just want to play a real game. And that's something I'm interested in doing. So I'm glad that's the trend with green pips, personally.
Boo!
Boo! Boo! Boo!
Well, shall we move on to the next card?
Sure. So the next card we've got is Turn the Tide. It's an action, uncommon, 1 black pip. It says, choose an equal number of Autobots and Decepticons. For each of those Autobots, move 1 damage counter from it to one of the Decepticons that you haven't moved a counter to this way. This card is the Autobot answer to the Decepticon card Magnetic Dysfunction Ray, which says do 1 damage to each character and then 1 to each Autobot. This card, A, doesn't seem as powerful because your opponent has to be playing Decepticons for this actually to be any good. They have to have at least as many Decepticons as you have Autobots for you to be able to move all that damage. And the former card, Magnetic Dysfunction Ray, is so powerful that I think that it's possible that Autobot strategies could get pushed out of the format. I know we talked about that before, and there were a whole lot of cards that have been released since then, but that card is very anti-Autobot. And this card isn't quite as much anti-Decepticon. So it's a good card, but I'm not sure that it's quite good enough to counter Magnetic Dysfunction Ray.
Good. It's about time that in the we put an Autobot card and we put a Decepticon card that are supposed to be polar opposites in a set happened, and the Decepticons won. It's about time. Go team bad guys. I know I talk about this a lot, but Magray, which is a much easier way to say that card, for me personally, it's how I've been calling it, is great. It's not dead if your opponent's not playing. Autobots, you can build your deck to where it actually can be a boon for you. It can do things like enable Energon Axe and other assorted things that you want it to do. Turn the Tide is not as powerful. It's objectively not as powerful. The pips aren't as good. It puts a play restriction on what you can play. It puts a play restriction on what your opponent can play. It doesn't trigger 2 times in the same way that Magray kind of like does double damage, does double duty if your opponent's playing Autobots, not like an extra effect. This is very likely relegated to a sideboard if it sees play at all, and I can only really see it seeing play in a wide metagame where Decepticons are everywhere. Honestly, I think Verdict's still out on this card for me. I'm waiting to see how the Wave 5 metagame turns out in order for me to really make a judgment on this one.
Yeah, this card is not near as exciting as the Magray, and I'm very, very happy about that. As you mentioned, like the Decepticons always get the short end of the stick, and yeah, it's about time that the Autobots did. If this card was reversed and they had it, deal damage from your Decepticons to your opponent's Autobots, just move damage over to them. Oh my gosh, Windsweeper would be kind of out of control at that point. So I think they had to make it this way. Pretty interesting card. I don't know how much it's really going to see play.
Yeah, keep in mind it doesn't say to your opponent's Decepticons. It just says to Decepticons. So you really can't play this in a deck that isn't only Autobots because you might end up hurting your own characters this way.
Wow, yeah, I didn't even notice that.
You can't even play it with Windsweeper because you can't move all of the damage from damage from each of your Autobots to Windsweeper. Because it says to a Decepticon you haven't moved a counter to this way. It's good against Windsweeper decks.
I don't even think it's good against that, because that restriction is honestly why this card probably won't even see play. Because you can't even pile the damage onto a specific character. It has to be onto different characters altogether. On top of the fact that you have to have an equal number of Autobots and Decepticons, along with Autobots that have damage. So it's like asking for a lot just for a weaker bombing run S type deal. So I don't think this card will see play at all.
Our very last new card from the set, we'll have a couple of reprints we're going to briefly discuss after that. But the next one is Precision Fire. Precision Fire is an action. It's an orange and a black pip. It says choose a mode, do 1 damage to each character in that mode. This card is great. You can pair this with Magray, which we were just talking about a bunch. They're both orange-black pips, so they kind of want to go in similar decks. They both focus on dealing damage kind of like at large, which means they are part of similar strategies. And the fact that you can kind of like build your deck to where it's not necessarily as bad against you. I think this card is disproportionately strong against patrols because those decks are largely featuring characters in their alt mode. I think that it's not as good against decks that are mixed between traditional characters and Titan Master characters because those have a mix of alt, body, and bot modes present among their team members, so you might just not... It might just end up doing a similar amount of damage to each team or more to yours than theirs, so you better care about where the damage is going. But I do think Precision Fire is going to be very good, particularly if patrols like the Airstrike Patrol or the Off-Road Patrol see a lot of play in the upcoming metagame. I'm excited for Precision Fire, and obviously it goes with, the man of the hour, Horrible.
I mean, think about how much you like Armed Hovercraft. This is kind of doing the same thing. It may not hit all of your opponents' bots, depending on what mode they're in, but it also has a orange and a black pip on it. Yeah, I think it's really cool. Definitely goes in any deck that's like just wanting to pile on direct damage and build around it.
Yeah, this card is fantastic. The only problem with it is I don't know if I'm going to have room to play a 4th through 6th copy of Mag Disray. So that's probably it. I could probably see 2 and 2 or probably just 3 and 1 or 2. But yeah, this card is fantastic. You only getting 1 transform per turn means that since most teams are generally 3 or more wide, you'll be able to hit at least 2 or multiple bots since it's usually just a singular character that's transforming. So very good, very good.
It's a very cool card. It's black and orange, which is very popular right now and will be popular again for sure. I dig the artwork on this card. I don't talk about the artwork on these cards very much, but I think this one's really cool. Getting Grimlock on there and
I thought that was Optimus. Oh, it is Optimus. Okay.
Guys, that's Ravage. Can't you tell?
Wait, isn't Ravage the cassette tape?
He's also a cat.
Oh.
Wait, I don't know what. Are y'all looking at the right card? Because I see Bumblebee right now.
Yeah. Anyway, Joel.
No, this card's really cool. I like this card. Echoing what Kai was saying, it's really more like a 4th, 5th, 6th copy of that card of the Mag Ray, and it might be hard to fit in some decks, but when you're trying to pile on direct damage with Horrible, this card's going to be fantastic.
I do think that there's a couple decks that bear specific mentioning as far as this deck goes, as far as this card goes. I think that any deck that's playing Sky Shadow might really like this card because you can turn choosing alt mode into a way for you to actually assemble your Sky Shadow, where you deal the last point of damage to your guy, which is actually like a really large tempo play. I also think that it might be a really effective sideboard option for blaster decks. I've seen a lot of blaster decks really recently adopt Mission Briefing as their card advantage spell of choice because the fact that Blaster flips to bot mode a lot, he often plays alongside a Battlemaster, and he deploys his cassettes in bot mode, means that Mission Briefing is often a draw 3 or a draw 4 over the course of the game, which is really powerful on a green pip. And the fact that Precision Fire is oftentimes going to be hitting the most characters in alt mode means that it might be really good out of the sideboard in that deck against other opposing wide strategies, particularly patrols, or maybe Insecticons if that ever makes a return. But Precision Fire, I think, very specific mentioning in those decks, I think it might just be a good enough card to see play in a lot more archetypes besides. So who wants to cover the reprints real quick?
Well, I'll talk about Improvised Shield. It's definitely one of the most important cards ever printed. It's a 2 orange common upgrade armor, which you will never use in armor. It's really just it might as well just be a blank card that has 2 double oranges on it, which makes it very useful in aggressive decks. And I gotta say, the artwork on this card is sweet. That is definitely more of an improvised shield than Magnus is using in the original iteration of the card, where Megatron is picking up a car.
Quick aside, that is when that art on the original one is from Simon Furman's Regeneration 1, and it's where Magnus is battling Galvatron, and Galvatron's like absolutely like kicking his butt, and yeah, he has to like improvise a shield to live.
Huh. That's so cool. That's such cool art. The handheld blaster has dope art on it as well.
Dude, the handheld blaster looks great.
Yeah.
The new one.
Why don't you talk about that, Kent?
I don't think anybody should play that card. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It'll go in the trash heap.
Joel says never put handheld blasters in your deck because he doesn't want you flipping those when he's trying to swing for the fences. Yeah, we all know what handheld blaster does. 2 blue. It's a weapon. Bold 1. Helps keep your Master Sword out there if you're like just holding them in your hand, or can help your Jetfire live on defense. So love the new art. That's really, really cool.
And commons again, so they'll be filling out your cards in your sealed pool often. All right, so like I mentioned at the beginning of part A of this episode, we just have too much content this week to answer our wonderful viewer questions. And I, as well as my co-hosts, only feel comfortable monopolizing only so much of your time. So you can expect our answers to those and many more questions on next week's recording, when I believe will be our first official podcast that doesn't coincide with spoilers.
Ooh.
What will they talk about?
We've got stuff, don't you worry. It should be a blast, and we can really dig into some of the strategic pieces of advice and information on that one. Well, wherever you're listening, We're glad you stuck with us this long, and there ought to be links showing you this in the description, but hopefully you can find this podcast future and prior episodes on a place most convenient for you, whether that's iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud, other podcast hosting sites, and hopefully Spotify soon. I know Kai has been up to expanding our empire.
Yeah, it is up on Spotify, so there will be a link in the description for both episodes if you want to listen on Spotify in the future.
Fantastic.
Sweet.
And on that note, I believe that ought to do it for episode 8. Before we let you go, if you find the input and information here valuable, you can find more strategy, analysis, tournament reports, and more like it at transformyourgame.net. And until next time, clear eyes, flip bots, can't lose.